Hello and welcome to this Destiny movie night. And today we're going to discuss the movie Requiem for a Dream. And before we begin, I will do a short synopsis of the movie for those of you that haven't seen it. And spoiler alert here, because I'm going to go to the details in the end of the movie. So, we have a mother, Sarah Goldfarb. We have a son, Harry Goldfarb. We have the son's girlfriend, Marion Silver. And we have the friend, Tyrone. And these four persons, we get to follow them through their life that is filled with the peculiar point of addiction. Now this addiction varies. The mother is addicted to sugar and later amphetamine, and the son are addicted to heroin. And we get to follow them through until their addictions finally bring them to their demise and they ruin their lives. That's the movie in a nutshell. And I have with me here a guest, which I'm going to discuss this movie with, and it's Reginald from Netherlands.
Hi,
Reginald. Hello. And before we begin, I can also say that anyone watching, you're welcome to participate with questions, and we will answer them. Okay, so Reginald, as I said, all the characters in this movie have some form of addiction. Could you explain what is an addiction, really?
Well, of course, I've looked it up in a dictionary. It says that an addiction is the state of being enslaved to a habit or a practice or to something that is psychologically or physically habit-forming, as narcotics, to such an extent that its cessation causes severe trauma. So in practical terms, an addiction is something a being does and has created a dependency on that experience. It may be an energetical compound or a substance, and because of that dependency keeps doing something or continue the use of the substance, which in essence is not necessary for us humans to survive. So if it's not necessary, then it can become called an addiction.
So it's quite a fascinating point, because in essence an addiction is where we do something not because it's practical or physical, but because, well, we are driven by something to do that, and this something inside us really can take us to the point of destruction in our lives. So, I mean, in the movie we see there are various forms of addictions. We have like heroin, we have sugar, we have, I know, someone is addicted to success. And would you say that even though, like, in the system, or normally we sort of define drug addiction as the worst addiction, but would you say that they are all the same, or are they different?
Well, we can call something quickly an addiction just because it looks familiar to an addiction as what we have come to know about it through media. But it's more like if you can just decide to stop the use of it or doing it, and it has no other effect than just it's stopping, and it doesn't create any turmoil. It's just, okay, you did something, then you don't, and it doesn't create any problems, then it's not an addiction. But in essence, yes, an addiction is something that you are dependent on, and that's actually the point of dependency, is the point that we can differentiate whether it's an addiction or not. So whether it's a sugar addiction, a drug addiction, a sex addiction, these are all patterns which really influences our personal lives and even our lives in the system For example, a work environment. Let's say someone who is an alcoholic, who's dependent on alcohol, which drinks at work. You know, it's quite a problem for those people who have created this dependency. Yeah.
I mean, so it's interesting. We have concluded then that addiction, that it's a form of imposing on one's free will. That like an addiction means that you're not actually in control of your life, and that you make decisions that will compromise your life. And I mean, you can see that, but still you do it. So would you agree with me that this is quite a fascinating point?
Yeah, of course it's fascinating. You know, it's like a self-willing or an idea of it being self-willed, but it's really a destructive pattern that we have then accepted to live. Yeah, it's not something that you would recommend, you know. Though people are easy to say like, oh, come on, drink a beer with me, or hey, just use this maybe weed or something that in essence is creating that point of fascination or curiosity within you, and through that you will easily can become subdued or get into that experience of being dependent on it, and it can become very done in a quick matter. You know, it can just be, for instance, I've heard about heroin, that you can become addicted just from one shot, and just by doing it once, you can fuck up your whole life. So it's a pretty serious state that we have come to accept as something that we can just try for the fun of it.
Yeah, and I mean, here comes the question that is, I find it most interesting. Why is it that we become addicted?
Sorry, why?
Yeah.
Why do we can be addicted?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I cannot say for certain why all people become addicted, because everyone has their personal points of why they have become addicted. And though the workings of it underneath that, or of the reason why people have become addicted, is all similar. You know, it's like a bodily dependence. You know, your body is craving for it. It wants to have that substance, either because you have overused it, misused it, and it has become dependent on it, or it's an energetical compound. You know, you are used to do it like a certain way. You are used to, for instance, act in an overly well, in let's say on the work floor, that you are having portrayed this character of being a real prick, just to get some control over other beings, and this can become an addiction. You know, where people have accepted themselves as, okay, I like this experience of being seen as all this mighty and people fearing me, and through that they will become addicted to just being a prick. It's not like then that being a prick is the addiction, but it's the energy that you get from it, the thrill, that idea that you will get from it, that will become the point of addiction.
Yeah. So I mean, for example, in the movie, we have 3 types of addiction, and I mean, the first addiction, Sarah Goldfarb, that's the mother. She's addicted to sugar, and she also watches lots of television. And I mean, when I look at it, what I see she's doing with her addiction, it's like it's not actually the substances in themselves that she's addicted to. For example, it's not the sugar in itself, it's not the television in itself, it's more what these things represent to her.
Yeah.
And for example, you know, she's depicted in the movie as living this very boring, very uneventful life, and she misses her past. She misses that a purpose, a meaning. And so when she sits in front of the television and she gets out the sugar and the chocolate, it's like a way of filling herself up and sort of, well, being able to for a moment experience her life as being meaningful or eventful. You know, sugar, she gets that high.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can relate to this myself because I have also been quite deep into marijuana. And why I did that was because I had difficulty finding sort of a, you know, being relaxed and comfortable in my own skin and being able to be with myself and enjoy myself. And when I took marijuana, it was like, oh God, yeah, I can do this. But really, the marijuana was not what I desired. It was actually that point of me, you know, that point of me expressing myself that happened to come through more when I, you know, took that particular drug.
Yeah.
And so is that something you can relate to as well, that you really didn't become addicted to the drug, but more to what it gave you as of like something that you missed within yourself?
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. You know, it's like, um, for instance, when I stopped using alcohol, um, well, you get pretty, you grow up with using alcohol. You know, from like you're 16, maybe for from when you're 16, you will get used of drinking alcohol every week. And then when I stopped it, I was like standing there in the bars, like really missing myself. Like, oh, why am I not relaxed, or why don't I dare talking with beings, or why am I afraid to dance? You know, if I just had this alcohol, if I just had this beer, everything would have been better. But yeah, it's just the illusion that you create for yourself. Because if you really think of it, if you um, just be honest with yourself, and you can see yourself being able to dance, but you just don't do it because you are either afraid or and it's not something that not using alcohol prohibits you of dancing. No, you can just dance, but you don't dare to. And that's are the points that through addictions we actually do not face. You know, if we stop our addiction or dependency in this case, um, you can see that you actually have to move yourself, you have to will yourself to get to that point of, yeah, doing something that you probably won't be doing in other cases. Um, but yeah, there's that point of growth, and if you do not dare yourself, if you do not um, see that you are able to change the point yourself, then yeah, the addiction will hold on, and you will always think like, oh, it's the alcohol that I miss, but instead you're not seeing the real point. It's actually you not being able to be honest with yourself and see like, okay, it's me who prohibits myself, or who is neglecting myself, who is standing in the way of myself to actually express myself.
Yeah. I mean, so it's interesting if we take a look at our worlds, we can actually sort of identify through looking at what points we are addicted to, what we are not giving to ourselves as, you know, expressing ourselves in a way that we'd like to experience ourselves. For example, in terms of, well, the marijuana addiction, what I could have done back then was to, start practicing or asking myself, okay, when I'm alone with myself, how can I express myself in such a way that I do enjoy myself? Or how can I create myself so that I can be relaxed and at ease with people, even though I'm not on this drug? Like making so it becomes me. And I must say that that this process of self-creation is a much more fulfilling experience than taking a drug and having this quick fix that lasts for some hours and then get back to your usual self.
Yeah. I can also relate to that because I've also used marijuana in the past. And when you're smoking it, it's like everything is okay, but eventually you will get into such a state of mind. It's just a rush that you think you need it, and then create the experience again and again and again, that you will eventually um, not even see anymore that you're not in control of yourself anymore, and that the substance actually is taking over because you're all in your mind. It's becoming all a mind job. You're not really deciding to take that drug or substance um, for your own pleasure, but more from a point that, yeah, if I take this, I will get this. And like you said, a quick fix. And we are just becoming more focused on getting these quick fixes, though it's not really a fix. It's just something temporary that we can live at that moment because we fuck up our chemical balance in our bodies um, and then because that it won't block any points that may have blocked your expression or your thinkings, so that you are actually daring to step out of your current character. But eventually, if you are straight with yourself, you can see that it's all a mind job in the end. If I take myself at the marijuana point, and if I look at what I did then, was I smoked a lot and I gamed a lot. And eventually I was just sitting on the couch, really being stoned and not feeling anymore like anything. I was just sitting there and enjoying myself, but it was not a real enjoyment. It was just, yeah, something I was used to. And yeah, it's really hard to explain. It's just like a sort of rush, a foggy mind. So it's not definitely something in the end that is worthwhile, but yeah, some beings are pretty good and in keeping it up for themselves, but it's just something that we create for ourselves. It's not real. No, it's definitely not real. No.
Yeah. So I mean, the characters in the movie, they create lots of consequences for themselves, and I wonder, can you relate to this point of, how an addiction can lead to consequences?
Yeah, for sure, but not in the essence of the examples of the movie, like prostitution or my arm having been cut off because of something rotting in my arm. But yeah, I have created like panic attacks, and like I was sitting on the bed when I've used it, and I was just waiting to die. I was trembling with fear. I was becoming paranoid about stuff. I felt my heart pound, and even after stopping my addiction, and these points were pretty still existent within my life, that I still had to deal with them. You know, like for instance, I was at work and then suddenly this immense fear pops up. You know, and I wanted to get away. I wanted to run, but you know, I had to have that job. You know, I had to get my money, but I also wanted to run away. So you know, you will get in conflict and you don't know what to do, and then you get lightheaded and you get more paranoid. So you will feel the point and more with thinking and thinking until I used the Desteni tools, you know, of self-forgiveness, investigating the points, and also seeing like, okay, these are consequences I have created for myself, and I can deny the things that I'm going through, because that is often what we do, is we try to deny the points that we are actually within. You know, like, okay, if I just deny it, it will go away. If I just block this experience, it will go away. But it is already there, so you cannot stop it at that moment, and you have to accept the point, like, okay, it's here and now I have to deal with it and not run away. And I used a lot of breathing at that point to stabilize myself, like, okay, I am now like feeling I am panicking or becoming afraid. I will just sit there, breathe, and realize that I am stabilizing myself and that I'm helping myself, and that I should not think about the consequences, because eventually it was all paranoia. It was not something real. Nothing in the end was ever real from that regard, you know. I did not die, obviously. But at those moments, you know, I was pretty sure I would die. And you can also see in the movie, like, this girl actually goes to extremes of prostitution. That she's selling herself out to get that drug. So she had it in another way, you know. I wanted to get away from the drugs, and she wanted to have the drugs. So it's just a polarity game. What will develop in your life, whether it will be a pulling or something that you want to push away, but still the same mechanism, and it can be quite consequential. Yeah, yeah. That's why I'm always saying to people, like when they are saying, well, you can just smoke one joint, like, well, just once in a while. I'm just like, ah, yeah, you can, but just make sure that you exactly know what you are doing, because otherwise it can get pretty fucked up.
Hmm. Yeah, I must say I relate to that. I mean, I fucked myself up with that form of drug as well, marijuana. And exactly in the same way, you know, I was sitting smoking it in the beginning. Whoa, this is so cool. I am having so much fun. But then, you know, as the point developed, it became more, as you said, you know, I must have this drug and I must smoke it. And then, you know, it became more and more a mind thing. And I didn't create these paranoia. I created more like these very strange and irrational ideas. For example, I actually stopped speaking for almost half a year. You know, almost stopped speaking because it was this idea that, you know, to reach enlightenment, I have to change myself in somehow. So, you know, the drug sort of altered and clouded me from being able to see clearly what I'm doing. And I developed lots of compromising traits and habits from, you know, being in my mind so much, which is the consequence of using marijuana. And I also, as you, I got myself out of it through using self-forgiveness, the tools of breathing, and it's been an extensive job to walk that journey out of the drugs. So for anyone considering to use drugs or that is in an addiction, I would like strongly advise against it, even though there are those, you know, these movements out there that apparently marijuana is harmless and that apparently drugs are fun and cool, but really it's not worth it because, well, I've seen countless of examples of people going into and becoming possessed, going into psychosis with these forms of drugs.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from Marlon, and she asks, "What's your perspective on the extremes the characters in the movie get to in order to continue feeding their addiction? And what was your experience, or to what extremes did you get to keep your addiction in place in the past?"
Well, it's some people would say like, well, I will never do such a thing. That always cracks me up because people just don't are not honest with themselves, you know, like this girl is having these cravings and she will eventually sell her body for this drug, and a lot of people are saying like, I will never do such a thing. And or some, but we have to take ourselves back to the original point, you know. It's like the idea of survival, and when we come to that point of survival, people will do anything as long as they will survive. And that is something that we all have to consider, and being less judgmental about beings having to go through, or going through all these points which are unacceptable. Let's make that clear. It's unacceptable that you do such a thing, but we have to create such an understanding of seeing like, okay, why has this happened? Why has this developed? And how can we change this point without blaming or judging it, and making it even more difficult for such a being to live with themselves? You know, I can bet that all these poachers who kill those animals are in the first place having a tough time with accepting themselves that they have to kill those animals just for the sake of money, or even kill people for the sake of money, or in order to survive. So we can really judge beings just because we are too narrow-minded in the first place to really accept that we, if we were them, would be in the exact same place and exact same doing. So that is definitely a point that everybody has to consider if you want to create an opinion about this, and really accept the fact that you would do the same. So if you don't do that, then you create an opinion, and that opinion will make you like superior to anything. And if you do that, you know, you are fucking with yourself. It's not how it is. And to come to the second point of the question, to what extremes I have gotten into to keep my addictions in the past. Well, I can say like it's always just money that we have to come by. I got a credit card back then, and I used it to buy weed, and just max it out. And all the money that I got was that I got from working, I put back into the credit card and max it out again, and just to keep the addiction going. And my lifestyle, of course, that came with it. You know, all my friends, who I just accepted to, which I accepted to buy something for them in relation to the drugs things, and just say, okay, no, it's fine. You know, creating a friend zone that you are. That you can create your lifestyle and maintain your lifestyle with. And it's fascinating that if you stop using it, you will lose them, because they are not actually your friends. You can also see that in that movie. That girl was in love with this being, and he made her feel like a real person. But then when that point of addiction came, when they didn't have any stuff to run through their veins, she became really horrendous against this person. So it's often just more an addiction to the experience, also from the other side, and a real understanding or a real caring or a loving and acceptance from another being. So if you are in that position where you feel like, yeah, but I will lose my friends, uh, yeah, just be honest about it. If you lose them because they were not in it for you, of you being that person. They were in it just because of you providing it, or you creating and maintaining that experience within themselves. And yeah, if they do not allow you to get into a better position or um, creating a new life for you, then maybe you should consider whether they are worth the time investments and money to be within your life. You know, that's a point which I had to face, which was quite yeah. You know, it did hurt me in the beginning. Though now I'm at that stage where I can say like, yeah, I was fooling myself, and some I still see, and some I don't. And those that I do not miss for real. So.
I can relate to you like so much there. And I remember, you know, the friendship group I hang out with, it was actually, it was in that context that I sort of started to, you know, become more aware of how relationships can have two sides to them, that they can be portrayed as one thing, but in the reality it's another thing. And here, what we portrayed towards each other, it was a group of friends. It was that, you know, oh, we're these good friends, we know each other, and we come together and have so much fun. But the reality of the relationship was that we wanted to get high. And you know, when someone had the drug in stash, we would get to that person and get high, not because we wanted to meet that person, but because we didn't care about him. You know, we could do it with anybody probably. But he had a drug, and so we went to him. And I also noticed, as you said, when I stopped, you know, most of my relationships in in that part of my life, they fell away because they were based on that point of I'm going there to smoke, I'm going there to smoke, I'm going there to smoke. So no real, not real anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have another question, and it's from Jogan, and it says, I'm interested in how the movie used images and music to portray horror of these addictions through drawing out a disgusting experience. For example, the arm amputation scene. Do you have any comments on this?
I didn't really pay that much attention to the music, because if you are looking at it, every movie uses the music to make sure that it combined with the picture that you see, it will create an emotional effect with everything. You know, if you would watch a horror movie without sound, you know, it's pretty boring, and so will be any movie. And yeah, I can see your concern, actually, that you or why you ask this question, because we are not really aware that sometimes we feel disgusted about beings or situations because just we have seen a movie and this created this idea through the music and the picture of it being all lovey-dovey or really disgusting or really scary, and through that not becoming aware that it was maybe the music why we reacted so to that picture, or it was the picture that that we really reacted to combined with the music. And it's quite a fascinating point, actually, because if you want to go into deeper of that, is that certain music tones can create just this experience of horror or of fear or anything that you somewhere somehow connected to that picture or the music or the tones. That is why a lot of beings actually fear brainwashing, because they are just not aware when and how and what they've connected with each other, where they have created relationships with each other or with images and stuff like that, and how they are actually controlled throughout their lives unknowingly. I've been in discussions with beings about brainwashing and such things. And you see pretty much the fear that I also had within myself, that these movies can actually do really bad things. But yeah, in the end, it's always you. It's always you who have not been aware, and you have allowed yourself to be programmed with that point. So if you have this fear of being programmed or being really against such music within these movies or some pictures, just make sure that you clear yourself of the energetics that comes with it, because in the end it's always ourselves that allow these points to exist within ourselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, to conclude, the movie uses music and images to create sort of a opinion about drug usage and the consequences thereof. But even though we can see through that and actually take something with us from the movie, because it does show this accumulation of decisions and how they lead to consequences that are harmful for us.
Yeah.
So to end this hangout, I would like to ask you, because we've now gone into the problem, deeply. Is there any solutions? Can we live without addictions? Have you actually stopped an addiction? How did you do it?
Yeah, I've stopped the addiction of marijuana, hash, or alcohol. So yeah, I stopped using them. How would you do it? Well, firstly, it's to come to realize that you are addicted. Accept the situation that you are addicted. Not fighting it like, no, I'm not addicted, or I'm not the kind of person who can get addicted. Accept it. You are addicted, and from there work your way up, in the sense of, okay, get to know yourself. Why are you using the point? Why are you using the drug, or why are you using the substance, or this experience? Write about it, and then forgive yourself for all those emotions that you have created within that. And if you have written about it and you have done your self-forgiveness, then you will eventually come to that state, to the point or state like where you have to make a decision of okay, this is how it will be in the next years, or maybe my whole life. You have to make a stand, and that is where you come to the decision, and then you just live the decision. Because you have to be aware, like, okay, if you are not seeing a reason to stop, or seeing it as something too consequential in your life, maybe the point of thinking about stopping it will not even occur, because it does not interfere with your life. Though if you see that it interferes with your life, you can stop it. Though there has to be some work that you have to do, because you have put in the time to create it. Now you have to put in time to stop it. And so there's not something like a magical cure that we all wanted. Or at least I sought out like all these informational pieces on the internet of how I can stop my addiction without having to do any effort. Well, this is not there, or at least it didn't work for me. What did work was the common sense, getting to know myself, self-forgiveness, and living the decision and also knowing that if I live this decision, I will actually get better of it. I will win. I will be more um, accepting myself as who I am and what I've become, instead of always looking back at myself as being a loser or someone who cannot stop any addiction that they have. So yeah, that is what I would suggest to any being in such a position where they want to stop an addiction.
Yeah, I agree with you, you know, because I've also faced points of, you know, stopping an addiction, and I do know how difficult it can be to find motivation. I mean, why should I stop when there are no consequences that you're able to see clearly, or there might be consequences, but you feel like it's not worth it, you know, to go through the effort. But a point that I have, I mean, used that has been my point of motivation to actually change points of this nature is that I'm doing it for me. I am developing myself. I am, you know, giving myself value and worth, and I'm making myself proud of myself and of how I live myself.
Yeah,
And I mean, seeing that in going through this effort, I will actually get a reward. I will get something out of it that I'm able to take with me and have with me for the rest of my life. And that's been a very cool point to realize and walk.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So I see that our time is up, and well, I'm going to say this next week's hangout, Friday the 5th September. Same time, it will be Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which is a similar type movie about drugs. And also, if you watched this and you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And yeah, lastly, I want to say thank you, Reginald. Great to have you here. Cool
No problem.
chat. Okay, so bye everyone, and thank you for watching.
Bye.